We heard that OCT angiography is an emerging field in glaucoma diagnostics, whereas spectral domain OCT is for a long time has a fixed place in our everyday clinics in glaucoma. And the reason is that we can image all the important structures we need for glaucoma diagnosis, like the axons, the ganglion cells, the ending of Bruch's membrane, endings of the artery, even the choroid, quite well with the OCT imaging. In the middle, you see a histology slide of a patient where we had to remove the eye, and on the right-hand side, the OCT directly belonging to this patient before removal of the eye due to a melanoma. And you see the fine match of the OCT image with the histology image. So OCT gives us the ability to see all the structures we are interested in glaucoma, and we try to use them to diagnose glaucoma if we are unsure about the early diagnosis, and of course, more helpful, we use it for following up our patients. On the left-hand side, you see a normal patient with a normal retinal nerve fiber layer with highly reflective inner band, and on the right-hand side, you appreciate how the nerve fiber layer has been lost, has thinned, and the ganglion cell layer underneath has also thinned in the course of the disease. So, because of the very high quality of the images, I would like to continue with the Spectralis glaucoma module, because in this module we have all the options to diagnose and to follow up glaucoma. We can measure the neurotubular rim with BMO MRW. We can measure the peripapillary retinal nerve fiber thickness, and in the center image you see where the ganglion cells can be imaged in a cube imaging with the OCT. So to begin with, the neurotubular rim can be measured in a new way with the Bruch's membrane opening minimum rim width analysis. A very complicated work. And you take 24 scans with 48 measuring points. You automatically detect the ending of Bruch's membrane and take the shortest distance to the limiting membrane. So you are able to measure the neurotubular rim width. And this is quite a useful measurement and very helpful in assessing the loss of rim in the course of the disease. The measurement then is compared with a normal international database with over 300 normal persons underneath, and the measurement of the patient is compared with this database, and if you are in the normal limits, you are in green. If you are in the 95% percentile or more, you end up with yellow, and more than 99 percentile, it's red. And you can view your measurements on total in the center, on the left-hand downside, or analyze all the measurements in the sectors due to Garvey Heath. For example, you can interpret these images quite nicely. Very small discs tend to have a larger measurement, and larger discs tend to have a smaller measurement of the neurotubular rim. And you have to take care whether this very flat double hump pattern goes down in the course of the disease or shows somehow notches in the temporal superior or temporal inferior area where the first loss of rim and retinal nerve fiber layer happens in glaucoma. It's quite a different thing. If everything happens on the temporal, in the temporal sector, then you have to do it most often with multiple sclerosis and not with glaucoma. In this example of a patient with normal tension glaucoma, you see in 2009 the hemorrhage inferiorly, then the rim loss inferiorly, but the visual field is still normal in this patient. And the rim measurement is flagged out in red on the temporal inferior side, and in the follow-up analysis, in the regression line, you see that in this area the patient loses rim and is progressing. So this is a very clear-cut indication for intensifying your treatment. The retinal nerve fiber layer is measured with rings around the optic disc, and this double hump pattern appears again, and it's also compared with an international normative database, and the sectorial reading is the same as the minimum rim width. And if this profile gets notches when neutral nerve fiber layer is lost. It can be first sign for glaucoma, or if you have a diffuse loss of nerve fiber layer, the whole double hump pattern becomes a flat line. So sometimes it reminds us of such a crocodile face on the left-hand and right-hand side. It's an image from a colleague in the Netherlands, and when the retinal nerve fiber layer thins in glaucoma. In this patient with juvenile open-angle glaucoma, you also realize that the patient deteriorates from 2009 to 2017 with a very slight change in the visual field. And in the course of the disease, in this event-based analysis, you see in red that the patient starts to lose nerve fiber layer from year to year. And in the trend analysis, you can see the same, and you have to fasten up the treatment of your patient. And when you look into the macula, you can watch the whole thickness of the retina or the nerve fiber layer in the macular area. But what's best is to look into the ganglion cell thickness, which is readily imaged in this heat map or in this rainbow colored map. When you look and when you compare a normal ganglion cell donut in the inferior with a patient in the superior, you will realize that the donut gets an edge, and ganglion cells are lost sectorially, which always correspond to a nerve fiber layer loss in the nerve fiber layer ring measurement, and gives you a sign that the patient has progressed glaucoma. But it's also important to compare the upper hemifield with the lower hemifield, and because asymmetry is a very sensitive indicator for early disease. Either you take the right or left eye or the upper and lower hemifield, like here in the ganglion cell analysis. In this patient, we have seen the progress, and when you look at the progress in the ganglion cell layer thickness from 14 to 17, upper and lower picture, you see in the area of the arrow that the patient is losing ganglion cell thickness and shows also progression in the macular area. In the macular area, you find most of 50% of the ganglion cells, so some change also happens even if it's a retinal nerve fiber layer related disease. And you can have a very indicative printout with all three measurements for one eye, and in one glance you can estimate whether the patient belongs to the normal side or is a suspect or is a progressed glaucoma. And in this way, structural OCT very much contributes to the multimodal imaging way in glaucoma disease, looking at the optic disc, measuring the important layers of nerve fiber layer of the rim and the ganglion cells, and of course correlating to other findings you have with like visual field or even OCTA. Thank you very much for your attendance.